So now I'm excited to also introduce our final speaker of the day, who will be Mike Hewitt. Mike is the founder at One House. Mike Hewitt has over 20 years of experience in hospitality, ranging from operations, brand development, human resources, building and scaling small companies, consulting, and recruiting. So, Mike, as you're getting ready to jump into your conversation of 2021 and beyond, let's think small. I'm excited to see your presentation, and the floor is yours, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you. Finishing strong at the end. Again, I'm blessed to be part of this conversation and with such great speakers today. I've learned a lot. I've really been wowed by so many different angles of, from this topic. So it's great for us. Really, we're in an interesting vantage point because we're dealing with recruitment for hotels and restaurants coast to coast. So we're in an interesting position where we're not hearing much from the guest perspective. We're hearing from the operators and owners of hundreds of restaurants and hotels throughout the country, and also the actual employee, right? We're representing the candidates and the owners, operators. So that's kind of an interesting array of information coming to us. We don't really discriminate sector-wise either, right? We'll do a 3 Michelin star restaurant, but then the next day we're doing a mom and pop in a small town in Colorado. Right. So again, it's just almost like a sponge of information coming out of COVID. And what we've heard, there's some trends that obviously I want to share with you guys today on a quick presentation. It's overall interesting way that we're moving to a different way of hospitality, a different way of consuming hospitality after COVID. It's been interesting to watch. Needless to say, our business, took a huge dive during COVID, and now in the last 5 to 7 weeks, it has been monumental, right? Which is very encouraging to see on the industry side. So again, really about thinking small. The idea behind that is moving away from these big box, impersonal, huge spaces, and moving more to a smaller, intimate environment. We're hearing that that's what guests are looking for and what they're feeling like after being stuck in 4 walls for all this time. They're really looking for that personal attention, that human touch, that warm hospitality that we all love. It's been lacking for many months, right? And I think that's what people are looking for. So if we move over here, we can see how, some of the business models have changed, right? So we're basically looking at, people moving from indoors, being scared of being indoors, to kind of an outdoor dining scene. Some restaurants can handle that. Some unfortunately can't accommodate that business model pivot. But we've seen that is something that of a focus. People are really looking to create outdoor spaces for the restaurants to accommodate the new post-COVID guest desires, right? People's behavior has changed. They've changed in many ways through COVID. And now that we're coming out of it, right, each state a little bit differently, some states much faster than others. I think people's behavior, it's starting to trend, and with the operators all the way down to kitchen design, floor plan design, a lot of different things that are happening post-COVID. Outdoor dining, a big one, whether it's on the sidewalk or in a patio inside. Delivery models as well. A lot of restaurants maybe weren't delivery friendly before. They've certainly switched over to that now. And we've noticed that some cuisines are doing better than others, right? Things like Asian cuisine, obviously Japanese, Korean, a lot of cuisines that most people at home just don't know how to make, right? No, we don't have sushi chefs at home, but people can pretty much make pastas and other Mediterranean dishes. So Asian cuisine, we've seen a big uptick in delivery model adaptation. People creating menu items that travel better. So the menu is actually changing in a lot of the restaurants, and a lot of the operators are telling us they're creating almost like a COVID-friendly new model, right? Sticking to their brand, but just changing the way that they're presenting their food, which is interesting. I think touch points is another one, right? People are looking for a little bit more of that warmth that I was talking about before, where going out has become very impersonal, right? You get there, someone with a mask, you got barriers everywhere, plastic, dividers and whatnot. So people are still craving that hospitality feeling. And I think that operators are really taking note of that. And come up with interesting ideas to still have that kind of warm feeling when people are actually coming to your restaurant, right? People's appetite have changed, and it's taking a little bit more for people to leave their house and actually come to your restaurant. So operators are adapting accordingly. A little bit more about that. I would say the smaller footprint, I think, is another trend that we've seen, right? People looking for more of a smaller footprint, bigger impact. Again, creating those intimate spaces. Emergence of ghost kitchens, I think, is an interesting one where, and it's happened everywhere, not just in the States, but a lot of the ghost kitchens with different models where you're still getting the brand recognition, perhaps even expanding your delivery zone with your brand, but not having the expenditure of opening up a whole restaurant from scratch, right? You have your core restaurant or your flagship, and then you can create these small ghost kitchens in different parts of the city or the country and still provide that same product to a bigger audience. So that's been a big trend that we've seen, and it's come in many different ways, from just ghost kitchens for restaurants to ghost kitchens within hotel operations, right? Hotels that literally don't have food and beverage as an offering, ghost kitchens that are actually providing services for the hotel and for hotels within a 5-block radius that don't have an F&B program. That's an interesting one as well. And these are some of the clients that we're working with day to day. So we get kind of the inside scoop of what some of the pain points are, some of the things that are working, and some of the ones that aren't. I would say the development of delivery streamlining is another one, right? Making sure that it's a very simple process to order the food, and then your third-party alliances. There was a big issue in the United States with third-party providers, the people that are actually delivering the food, taking huge percentages off the top, right? And that was obviously hurting a lot of restaurants that were only doing delivery because there was no option to eat at the restaurant. So, they were finally able to open up and serve food, and they were actually losing money, oddly enough, with labor costs and then these huge fees from the third-party alliances. So being smarter about how you actually deliver the food when that's all you have as your revenue stream, that has been an interesting pivot for a lot of the operators. Back to that smaller, safer, intimate experience. Nobody wants to be in a crowded space, at least not about a month or two ago. Now, if you go down to Miami, for example, a different ball game. It looks like they never got the memo that there was a pandemic. Other cities have treated it a little bit differently. So I think that having less crowds, more personal attention is definitely something that a lot of people are craving in today's hospitality world. So I want to talk a little bit about consuming hospitality. How have guests actually changed in their consumption of hospitality? And I say this because it's not just going to eat food, right? It's the whole dining out experience, the hospitality from A to Z. And I think that people have changed a little bit of their behaviors, right? Definitely more food halls, and especially on the outdoor variety of food halls where you have more options. You can kind of quick grab and go. You're not sitting and touching a lot of different things, where people are still a little bit hesitant to do that. I think that as more vaccinations kick in America, obviously that appetite is growing. People are starting to go out a little more than 2 months ago, clearly. Outdoor pods, we've all seen those. That's another way people are actually making reservations depending on what outdoor seating protocols restaurants have. So we've noticed that as well. People investing heavily in their outdoor spaces to attract more people, whether it's pedestrians or people seeking them out online. Dining out versus staying in, right? A lot of people that just do not want to leave their house have a couple options, right? It's either you're cooking for yourself 7 days a week, or you're looking for a couple other options. Meal kit models, we've seen those explode in the last year, and I think that trend is going to continue. Like I said before, people's behaviors have changed. So we're predicting that it's not going to go back to 100% what it was pre-COVID. It might be more of a 70-30 split, where you will go out a little bit less, but actually not be cooking for yourself all the time, and maybe meal kit models, pre-made meals where you don't even have to cook at all, but of a higher variety, higher ingredients, quality ingredients, and then obviously delivery, right? So we're starting to see that a lot, and people's revenue streams have shifted, right? Their percentages of delivery versus dining in have definitely shifted, and I think some of them are going to stick to that for a while. And then obviously traveling, you know, obviously travel versus local, right? People are traveling less. They have pent up money, right, saved up. So they're traveling less, but when they actually do take trips, they're staying for longer periods, which is interesting. They're making decisions according to the country policy and their state of alarm, per se. So some countries have suffered gravely because of this. I'm in one of them right now. I'm talking right now from Mallorca, from Spain, crushed, right? Mostly dependent on tourism, absolutely crushed. Other countries that were a little more lenient, people swayed over there to actually travel and consume their hospitality and their leisure. So that's been an interesting shift, and we'll see how that changes in the next year or so. Something that obviously is very close to what we do is talent migration, right? It went from nobody's hiring to everybody's hiring all at the same time. And they're wondering, where is everybody, right? Where is all the staff that used to be here about a year ago? Well, a couple things happened. One, we lost a lot of employees, a lot of potential hospitality talent moved on to other sectors, right? 4 or 5 months into the pandemic, they realized this isn't ending anytime soon. On the lower ranks of the front of the house, right, dining room staff and culinary, we saw a lot of migration of people moving on, people that weren't as committed to this industry as, let's say, a general manager or an executive chef. They moved on to other sectors and they may not be coming back. Another one, which is, I guess, a US problem, was unemployment. Unemployment that is still continuing today, where in some cases they're actually making more money just staying home and getting unemployment than actually going back to work. That's an issue. So we're waiting for that unemployment benefits to kind of dwindle, and then we'll see a big mass of talent coming back, we hope. So we've seen obviously a little bit of a loss there on both cases, and that basically the supply demand has been shifted a little bit. A lot of people that are, high talent individuals have been swept up in the market right away, and then you have kind of a mid-tier where everyone's bidding and fighting for that talent. So it's getting a little ugly, I have to say. And then for the next couple months, I think until the dust settles, it's going to be tricky to make sure that you retain the talent from an operator perspective. And that really puts the pressure back on that operator and that owner to make sure that they have the right company culture, the right benefits, the right attraction, right, to get people to not only the industry, but to their specific location. So I think that's really putting pressure back on the owner's side. It's definitely something that we need to all look at in the industry, is how do we reshape the industry, and how do we not only attract people to come back, but also to keep them there, right? We want to make sure that they stay in hospitality, they grow, and they move up the ranks in hospitality. And it really starts from the school all the way up to the job offer. I've been talking to deans of culinary schools. They've obviously seen the numbers of students applying drastically reduced. We're looking to help in any way we can to really make that industry something that is desirable and that is a strong career choice for people, not just a couple of years and then move on. We have, obviously pent up investment, right? We've talked to a lot of operators, people that have been literally waiting in the sidelines, waiting for the right moment with their investment money to pounce, right? To take on leases that have been devalued, that are down in major cities. We had a migration of people moving from the New Yorks and San Franciscos over to like second or tertiary markets where the rents were much more lower, and they could actually get a much better deal and a longer lease. But now, again, the wave is coming back to the major cities, and you have a lot of pent-up investment for new openings and for reopenings. Right? Restaurants that were stagnant and maybe even closed for a while, now reopening again, which is interesting. Operators are looking to see what concepts are appealing and relevant in today's post-COVID environment, and obviously investing in those and restarting from scratch. Old operators, people that lost their restaurant during COVID, but obviously are well-known, have a good name, strong work ethic. Those operators have found funding and are opening up new restaurants. We're getting a lot of our old clients just with a new rebrand, which is interesting. And then obviously the reopening of existing venues with new models, right? A new restaurant the same location, maybe same owner, but flipped it to a different brand that's more relevant and adapted to the client's needs. A floor plan and design, that's another one, right? COVID-friendly dining room design and seating floor plans, very important now with the spatial planning, right? According to, making sure everyone's distanced correctly and the design, less physical touch points, things like that. People are really taking that into effect when they're designing their restaurants. Brick and mortar versus virtual, right? Looking for truly touchless delivery of goods versus in person. That's another trend that we're seeing. That some people are going back to the restaurant model. Other people are trying to do the virtual delivery and again, back to the ghost kitchen we talked about today. The dining experience will return in person just with new measures. We're seeing that already. In the last 2 months, it has been incredible, the turnaround in the United States, be it the vaccine rollout, people's, pent up, sitting home for a year and they're starting to go out more. And I think they're putting their guard down a little bit, still keeping things safe, but actually going out a little bit more. So we're starting to see the dining experience come back. And that's, we want to end this with a high note and a positive note. Things are getting much better. We've had a really tough time, but there's really the light at the end of the tunnel. I'm seeing it from my vantage point. Like I said, talking to operators and talking to candidates, there's a lot of enthusiasm in the air. And, we can't wait to see what happens in the next 6 months. And that is our team right there. And that kind of concludes our talk. Thanks,
Awesome.
everybody.
Thank you so much, Mike. And my number one question to you, as a young person in the industry, this industry, I feel like is very unique and it's so undiscovered with my generation. And with the amount of layoffs and the furloughs that happened in the beginning, the reason why, one, we're not seeing a lot of people return because it's still closed and not be able to be fully hired at the salary that they're desiring or whatever that may be. But what do you think some things are as vaccines roll out, restaurants, hotels get occupied more, they start generating more revenue, they start shifting the way that they operated prior to COVID. What are some ways to attract the next generation of hoteliers, restaurateurs, you name it? Because that's where I'm finding myself,
Sure.
being, I guess, the sore thumb in the room.
100%. I mean, look, I think that there's a couple things on people's mind. First of all, safety, right? You have to make sure that you have an absolutely safe, high protocol operation, right? So that a potential employee that comes in, even through the interview process, right? The relationship is started right there from that first email, that first phone call, that they understand they're going into a safe place. Obviously, we're talking about COVID and we're talking about physical safety, but we're also talking about the elephant in the room. Harassment, other forms of safety, that to make sure that you have an absolutely clean and healthy work environment. That's one. I think that the company culture is going to attract people one way or another. I think that less so, another 5,000 or 10,000 salary is less important than making sure that you're working for a great boss, a great leader, a great hotel or restaurant group. People are craving that more. That stability factor that was ripped away a year ago. That's what they're looking for, and that's what we're seeing. We're definitely not seeing mercenary type of people, right? Just looking for a little extra money. It's all about, well, who am I working with? What is this company all about? Where do I see myself in 5 years? If we do have another huge, pandemic, how am I going to be treated? And I think that it really goes back down to that relationship building between the candidates and the owners. And we're in a privileged position to be the connectors between those two. So we're obviously a little bit of a funnel between those two. And what we're doing our part at One House is making sure that we're working with high integrity, high moral clients and literally not working with any that don't display those characters, right? So we'll literally leave money on the table, but our integrity and obviously protecting the candidates flowing through us is of utmost importance.
Yeah, and it goes right back into that work-life balance. People I think for a long time prior to COVID and everything, were okay with having a crappy boss or whatever, just because we're paying the bills. When I get home, I don't care about work. I'm not thinking about it. But now we have a very passion-driven generation, and even people like yourself that are wanting to show up to work and be happy, and not like have to dread about going to work the day next and whatever. And so I think that is a huge play.
And one last thing, COVID just accelerated what was already happening. Is that in our industry it was sick, right? There were, in a sense that it didn't make sense to to work people 6.5 or 7 days a week and have no quality of life and exhausted coming back the next day. So there was already an issue there, right? COVID, if anything, just shook everything up, and now it's really a great time to rebuild and to do it right. And it really starts from the operators, and then obviously the candidates' willingness to adapt to that.
Awesome. Yeah, it starts from the inside out. I love that. Thank you, Mike.